Hello, and welcome to Therapy, a video series that's part analysis, part retrospective, but mostly, stuff. Star Trek Generations is a mess, but you already know that.
It's alright, it's alright. These things happen.
But there's still an awful lot to talk about. In case you need a refresher, Captain Kirk is pulled into an energy ribbon. 78 years later, Captain Picard is pulled into the same energy ribbon, where they live out Kirk's fantasies of shooting phasers and exploring the galaxy. Cooking eggs and riding horses. Meanwhile, an evil scientist attempts to implode a star, killing hundreds of millions of people in the process. At first, Kirk doesn't care.
Besides which, I think the galaxy owes me.
But Captain Picard changes his mind.
Did you kill my son?
So let's run through the movie beginning to end, stopping along the way to discuss various topics like the unused uniforms, video game adaptations, and William Shatner's insane pseudo-sequel novels. Feel free to chime in below if you want. This is Star Trek Generations Therapy. Kirk, Scotty, and Chekhov are christening the USS Enterprise B and her crew. Wait. Whatever. A rough cut of the movie had an alternate opening sequence with Captain Kirk skydiving.
Right on target! I jumped out over the...
That was intercut with a champagne bottle floating through space that leads up to the christening ceremony. There was even an action figure made for this. Anyway, the Enterprise B is summoned to a distress call because, they're the only ship within range.
We're the only one in range, sir.
The only starship in interception range is the Enterprise.
We're the only ship in the quadrant.
There must be other ships in the quadrant.
Her captain can't get his shit together, so Captain Kirk rises to the occasion.
You got the touch. You got the power. Yeah!
Once again, Captain Kirk saves the day, but not before getting sucked into the Nexus. He stays there until the end of the movie, which means the filmmakers totally cheap out on actually having him interact with the Next Generation crew, or play a significant role in the plot.
There are two in the Viridian system.
Maybe it had something to do with the number of shooting days that William Shatner agreed to.
Total denial is the only way out.
But structurally speaking, just about anyone could have accompanied Picard out of the Nexus at the end to stop Sauron. And overall, it just makes the entire production feel lazy. Everyone's hanging out on the holodeck. Riker's treating Worf like crap. Geordi's pretending to look through a telescope even though he sees through a visor. And Data pushes Dr. Crusher into the water. But he ain't the first guy we see get her wet.
You owe me something. You do realize that, don't you? I'm a woman. I haven't had the comfort of a husband. A man.
A man.
The Enterprise is summoned to the Amagosa Observatory where they discover that nearly everyone has been mysteriously slaughtered. So it's a perfect time for... Introducing the main villain, Dr. Tolian Soren.
Ah, yes, Captain. Thank you for coming.
They say time is the fire of the
Dr. Sauron says he needs to get back to the observatory in order to complete his work.
Yes, I must return to the observatory immediately. I must continue a critical experiment I've been running on the Amargosa star.
But he gets denied by Captain Picard. At this point, wouldn't he have all the research he needs to complete his plan to implode the Viridian Star? He's already spent the past 80 years planning this, and he's only a couple of hours away from actually doing it. That's some hardcore procrastination from a guy with a PhD. Regardless, he goes over to the observatory anyways, so it was pointless to even call attention to himself by asking for Picard's permission in the first place. But whatever. He kidnaps Geordi and interrogates him about trilithium.
I want to listen to everything you know about trilithium.
Trilithium, the stuff that he's already used to build his star-killing missile. The missile that's already waiting for him on the surface of Viridian 3? What would Geordi even know about trilithium anyway? I mean, he's a smart guy, but he's the chief engineer on a starship. Dr. Sauron is the research doctor, so maybe he's just confused.
What the hell's he doing?
Elsewhere in Generations, Captain Picard is having a meltdown after he discovers that his family has died in a fire.
Oh, it's just family matters.
Dr. Sauron's discussion with Captain Picard is supposed to evoke something in Picard, but, I don't really get it.
They say time is the fire in which we burn. Right now, Captain, my time is running out.
So time is the fire in which he burns, and right now his time is running out. So time is precious, because they both wish that they had more of it, but it's also the fire that they're burning in. So wouldn't time be a bad thing? If the fire I was burning in was running out, I'd be happy. But I'm probably just reading into this too much. I've got way too much time on my hands. Anyway, so Guinan recognizes Sauron and explains the Nexus to Picard.
It was like being inside joy.
Ride together with you. Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, let's go, let's look for sure.
And here's a good spot for a quick break and a trivia question. Star Trek Generations had a few video game adaptations. There was Beyond the Nexus for the Game Gear and Game Boy, but for the PC there was simply Star Trek Generations. The game's story more or less follows the plot of the movie.
Yes, sir. There are 2 in the Viridian system.
I take it you're the madman.
And you, Kirk, are a dead man.
Except that the Enterprise D is destroyed at the end of the game, compared to being destroyed about 2/3 of the way through in the movie. So here's the question. How is the Enterprise D destroyed in the video game Star Trek Generations? So chew on that, and the answer is coming up after this break.
In a distant corner of our galaxy, an invincible alliance has been formed.
Engage! Let's go!
Jack in the Box and the new Paramount motion picture Star Trek Generations team up to give you a free Star Trek Generations movie collector's cup when you galaxy-size any Supreme Value combo. For just 39 cents more, beam up to bigger fries, a larger drink. Collect all 4 limited edition cups. It's a stellar deal for just 39 cents more, only at Jack in the Box.
And welcome back. So the question is, how is the Enterprise D destroyed in the video game adaptation for Star Trek Generations? And the answer is, by Dr. Sauron when he tampers with the warp core after his plans are thwarted on the surface of Viridian 3. So initially, the movie was going to use new Starfleet uniforms, but those plans were scrapped late in pre-production. However, the design for the action figures were already finalized, so it gives us a good look at these uniforms. They incorporate a double-breasted coat that echoes the uniform design in the original series movies. The ranking pips were moved down to the chest flap. and the officer ranks were also indicated by the rings on the wrists. Had they gone with the new uniforms, they probably would have been used on DS9 and Voyager as well, thus changing the course of history for whatever. So the Duras sisters show up to aid Dr. Sauron. The producers must have remembered Star Trek VI pretty well, because they reuse a few shots here and there. However, they must have forgotten the color of Klingon blood. Generations marks the 5th and final time the bird of prey is featured in a Star Trek movie. By this point, the bird of prey has been both friend and foe, and as recently as the last Star Trek movie, we've already seen this ship disposed of by much older Federation vessels. So it's hard to see the bird of prey as any kind of threat by this point. The Duras sisters appeared on Deep Space Nine, in presumably the same bird of prey that appears in Generations, so comparing it with this runabout gives a good sense of how much smaller this ship is than the Enterprise D. Anyway, no Klingon opera for you. So just before all that goes down, the Duras sisters and Picard work out a hostage exchange for Geordi. Picard will beam over to the bird of prey in exchange for Geordi, but not before the bird of prey beams down Picard to Sauron's secret coordinates. That would mean that Picard's transporter beam should be orange, like the Klingon transporter beam, but again, whatever. Sauron spouts off a few more time analogies.
It's like a predator. It's stalking you. The predator has no teeth.
Enough of the metaphors, right? It's an order.
Why doesn't Sauron just kill Picard right now? He's got his little sideways gun, and he's about to kill everyone in the entire solar system as well. Maybe he's taken with Picard's flawless Elorian accent. Either way, the Enterprise crew crash lands on Viridian 3, while Sauron and Picard are sucked into the Nexus. Once there, Captain Picard finds himself in the production of A Christmas Carol, which seems like more of a Patrick Stewart fantasy than a Captain Picard fantasy. Maybe this would have been more appropriate. Anyway, he shakes it off and says he wants to return to Viridian 3 moments before Sauron shoots off the rocket. Some people point this out as a plot hole because Captain Picard pretty much could have gone back to any other point in this movie in order to stop Sauron more easily. I actually think it's an awesome idea, because if he arrives moments before Sauron shoots the rocket, there would be 2 Picards running around. The Picard returning from the Nexus, and the Picard that's already there. Those 2 Picards could totally work together to stop Sauron. Oh, maybe not. So he finds Captain Kirk instead. Notice the Starfleet badge on Kirk's vest.
Do you smell something weird?
There's also a Starfleet badge on his jacket. So is he wearing a Starfleet badge on each layer of clothing? Or did he move it from his jacket to his vest when he took off his jacket? So many questions, so little time. You know they say that time is the fire in which we... So Kirk is unimpressed with Picard, and is preoccupied with making eggs for Antonia. She's the woman that's referenced off-screen that Kirk made sexies with before he decided to chop wood. And this actually sums up the biggest problem with the script itself, and that is, everything that carries any emotional weight happens off-screen. Sulu when we meet his daughter, the lives in danger on the 2 transport ships, Sauron's dead family, Picard's dead family, the lives at risk in the Viridian solar system, Antonia, who Kirk is so distracted with, and of course Spock.
And if Spock were here, he'd say that I was an irrational, illogical human being.
So instead of showing the audience what to care about, the movie tells the audience what to care about. And that's not really a mistake, it's just, bad storytelling. Anyway, they leave the Nexus to throw a lemon party on Viridian 3. They defeat Sauron.
Finish him.
but Kirk falls to his death.
Friendship.
Notice that he's at the bottom of the mountain when he dies. Yet his grave is back on the mountain peak. That means that Picard must have dragged Kirk's bloodied remains back to the mountain peak to bury him. However, judging from the size of the rock pile, it might have just been Kirk's severed torso, which would have been much more manageable. The story of Generations wouldn't stop there, and William Shatner would see to it. He would co-author a series of novels following up on the events of Generations because, why not? So here's a quick summary of those novels. Kirk's body is exhumed by Romulans, who have formed an alliance with the Borg. They restore his Katra to his body, and Kirk is resurrected. However, the Borg have blocked his memories with their implants, and he's sent to kill Captain Picard. But Kirk eventually overcomes his Borg programming while on Deep Space Nine, where Dr. McCoy oversees an operation performed by Dr. Bashir to remove the Borg implants. Once recovered, Kirk and Picard find and deactivate the central Borg node, which is the communications link between all Borg cubes. The catch is, the person deactivating the central node would die, which would be Kirk. Only he's saved at the last minute by an alien race that was released by the Borg central node as it was being destroyed. He then becomes some sort of man without a past wandering Bruce Banner type, but he eventually re-emerges to help Spock avenge the death of Sarek. So yeah, now you know? Ultimately, Generations was about Dr. Sauron trying to destroy a star so that he could be about 30 feet higher in order to hop into the Nexus. If only Spock were there, he could have saved everyone a lot of time and effort if he just lent Sauron these. I hope you've enjoyed Star Trek Generations Therapy. Thanks for watching, you defective plasma coils.
Defective plasma coils.